Awesome. So yeah, you were telling me the story about the guitar. Can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes, I am Brooke Ligertwood. I'm Brooke Ligertwood. Hello, nice to meet you. And I'm a person from New Zealand, which is a tiny country at the bottom end of the world. And I write and make music.
Awesome. And so, can you tell me the story behind the guitar? You were giving me a little bit of it, and we kind of paused so that didn't have to tell it twice. But,
Yeah. So I've been writing songs since I was 12, and around the age of kind of 16, I started hanging out with these amazing older girls who really took me under their wing. And one of them, her name was Leah. She was in her 20s. She was a songwriter herself. She was a social worker, but she was a songwriter, and she had been saving up to buy her own Martin guitar, and so she had been saving up, and she bought this, base model Martin guitar, a 000XM Auditorium. And one day she came to me with tears in her eyes and said, "I feel like I'm actually supposed to give this guitar to you," and so she sacrificially and generously gave me that guitar, and that was the guitar I wrote my entire first record on, had for years until I bought my own Martin, which was a Paul Simon, and I've been playing Martins ever since. So I played always my Paul Simon or my I have two Eric Claptons as well, and so I just love Martin guitars. I've always played Martin guitars, and then a few years ago, I thought I was being punked, but Martin approached me to develop my own signature edition guitar with them, and so got to come out to Pennsylvania to Nazareth and go to the factory and do a whole tour and look at every process of how these incredible guitars are made. And it was a really special day because, they say never meet your heroes, right. But I felt like I was meeting my hero in this incredible place, and it was even more wonderful and true than I had expected. And then got to sit in the boardroom with the team and design this guitar, which is really a combination of all my favorite things about my Paul Simon and my Eric Clapton. It's kind of like a hybrid of those two guitars. And so I remember when I was talking to the team and I was like, okay, what are my restrictions? What are the boundaries? And they said nothing. They're like, we want you to design the guitar that you want to play for the rest of your life. So, so it's really uncompromising in terms of the materials that we've used, down to even the glues. every element was considered in terms of what was going to give the sound quality and the resonance that we wanted, while still being that smaller body guitar that I love. For me, it's really, I move a lot on stage, and so I love that it's very wieldable. It feels like it becomes part of my body. It's not this thing I'm trying to maneuver around, but I feel like when I play this guitar, it gives me the freedom to kind of be able to move around and go where I need to go musically, whilst being in a smaller body, but still providing that kind of quality of sound. So I love it, and yeah. Then to circle back, then I was able to get in touch with Leah, 20-something years later, and she wouldn't take a guitar for herself, but she allowed me to send her daughter one of these guitars, and so. It's a kind of this incredible, beautiful story, really, of this woman sacrificially giving me this guitar, which now, you'd look at it, be like, it's a base model guitar, but for her, I understood the sacrifice of her giving this to me, and then I'm able to send her one of the most beautiful guitars that I've ever played, and give that to her and kind of put that back into her life. So it's like a seed in time, and then hopefully this kind of beautiful harvest. It's just pretty amazing. I'm a girl from Lower Hutt, so all of this is very unlikely. Yeah.
It's amazing how that kind of thing works, whereas like the unlikely just happens. And I think it happens for people who have a heart of like lack of entitlement towards it, where the expectation isn't there. I think that's really awesome. So you talked about 12 years old, writing songs. Was it around 12 that you got inspired to do music? What inspired you to be a musician?
I think for me, I just loved, I had been being classically trained in piano from when I was about 7 years old. And it was when I was 12 that my piano teacher actually said to I learned in a group setting, which is very weird. I mean, I don't know how you would maintain your sanity and teach a bunch of 7-year-olds, like a group of 8 7-year-olds playing piano at the same time. Like, no, thank you. But she gave us this assignment one day to compose a piece of music. I think the theme was Christmas or something, and we had to, so the assignment was to compose the music and then also to write a melody and words. And so this was the first time, I took that assignment home, and at 12 years old, this was the first time I realized, oh, I don't have to play just what's written on the page in front of me. I can write things and put them on the page and play those. And for me at 12, it opened up this entirely new world to me. And I think I was always kind of a pretty philosophical kid, but didn't know really what to do with all these questions that I had about meaning and purpose and all these things. And so music and songwriting particularly for me was a way that I could actually express that. And it was like a healthy outlet for me to be able to articulate these questions. And for me, I think it really helped with the development of my inner life, being able to be in touch with those questions and those parts of my soul that felt unsettled, and channel that into writing music. And so really the only reason I started singing the songs is because there was no one else there was no one else to sing them. And then I guess just no one ever told me to shut up. And now it's 30 years later almost, I don't know.
That's amazing. When did you know or feel the pulling to actually go into leading worship?
Mm-hmm. This is an answer people are not going to like, but it never happened.
It never happened?
Nope. I have been doing mainstream music, actually. I signed a contract with Sony when I was 18 years old, so I have 6 mainstream albums and have been touring and making records for 20 years in the mainstream space. And I always, I remember when I was 18 years old and I signed to Sony and I moved up to kind of the big city in New Zealand to make my first record, and so obviously I had to change churches, and they asked me to kind of be on the worship team, and I was a little bit miffed because I was like, well, just because I sing sometimes it doesn't mean I know how to lead worship. Right. Because leading worship, it's not singing. You're using singing, but it's not singing. You are doing something in the spiritual realm, using practical tools, using words and melody and singing, and being able to gather people and focus them in one direction. But it's not the same. And I think that gets confused a lot, that if you have a pretty voice, you should lead worship. Not necessarily. And so I was like, I'll serve in other ways, but that, I mean, I knew how to warfare. I knew how to pray because of my own spiritual journey. So in the privacy of my room, I could stomp, but that wasn't something that I ever felt like was supposed to be on a stage. And so in 2004, when I ended up moving to Australia and meeting the people who would become, or the person who became my husband, Scott, and all of my kind of best friends, I was there for a few months, and then our beautiful worship pastor, Darlene, asked me if I would co-lead one Sunday. And I was like, I don't know, Darls, I'm not sure. She was like, can you just, let's just try it. And she just, talk about an incredible pastor, an incredible worship pastor. She just was really gentle with me, always so empowering and encouraging. And so I led at church kind of for the first time, and honestly went home and cried because I felt in some ways quite horrible about it. I felt like I had exposed the most intimate and real part of my life and put it on a stage. And I was on a stage all the time, but I wasn't putting that on a stage. And it was the tension of feeling that vulnerability, but then also recognizing that I think something happened in the room when I did that. And maybe this is part of how I can serve my community, this community that I'm part of. And so I started leading from there, certainly not as a vocation, but just as a volunteer. So I would go out and do my mainstream tours and tour in Germany and in the US or whatever. And then when I was home, I was just part of the team, part of the furniture. And so that's really my journey. And for me, it reminds me of a friend of mine posted a quote the other day. I think it was it was either Oswald Chambers or Charles Spurgeon, and it said something to the effect of, don't go into ministry if you can help it, but if you can't help it, then you're the man for the job. And that's kind of how I feel. I feel like if the stage is something that you really want, in a certain sense, I think you have to really submit that to the Lord. But often, to be honest, the people that I meet who I feel like minister powerfully in those kinds of positions are the people who never wanted it. But they'll do it because the most important thing to them is being obedient to the Lord. So for somebody watching this and feeling their heart beating a little faster now because they recognise, I don't want to do that, but maybe that means I'm supposed to.
It's so humbling. Like that feeling. It meant a lot when I knew that you were getting a guitar made for you, because in the industry where it's like you have Paul Simon, Clapton, Mayer, and then you.
It doesn't make any sense.
You know,
when you put it like that, I'm like, yeah, why?
And so
how are we even talking about this?
That favor that just happens.
just
And I think my heart is sensitive to it because my wife's a music educator. She's an African American woman in a male dominated world, and she's a music educator. And I know the tensions of what it takes to actually like feel like you can do your job and not have everybody like see and the favor that God has put on her life. Like in a couple of weeks we go perform at Disney and with a gospel choir.
That's so fun.
The choir, most schools have to have it as a club, and in her situation it's a class, and she gets to talk about, because it's urban, and how the gospel impacted the urban community through the history of America. And so there's the historical element of it all, and the component for culturally for African Americans. That's the songs that they had were hymns and everything else like that. They didn't have the other songs that were like masses in Latin and such back in the 1800s. And so for her being able to do those things, it's amazing, and God just shows so much favor. What do you really want people to take away when they come to the concerts?
I hope that people come, and from the first moment they step through the doors, I hope that they feel incredibly welcomed. I hope that they feel like it's a safe space where they can come as they are. And it sounds a little cheesy, but I hope that they leave and that it's not my name on their lips, but that this is not a tour of concerts or shows. My team always laugh at me because they know how I feel about, we don't use the word show. It's not a show. It's not a performance. If anyone says show, I'm like, show of God's glory. because I don't want anybody to come and, my worst outcome would be that people come and are impressed. That's my worst nightmare. I pray that people come and that they're deeply impacted by God. That is the idea, that people don't leave with my name on their lips, but with the name of Jesus on their lips, going, look what God has done in my life. That is the dream. I have nothing to lose. I have no hopes for myself. But I have great hope for what God might do in the lives of people. Yeah.
Awesome.